a question which comes quite predominantly that it's about the belief, right? That Africa today is the world's most misunderstood opportunity. I'm using the word opportunity, right? So, what is your thoughts on it? And if you think that it's there, so why the people are failing to see that experience and opportunities firsthand?
Yes, absolutely, Bajaj. I strongly believe that Africa is not merely an emerging opportunity. It is one of the most structurally underestimated opportunity in the modern history. If the world together focus on Africa, the world history in the next decades, we have a different dimension um, towards um, towards growth in terms of what it looks like. What many people fail to see is that Africa's greatest asset is not simply natural resources or
Mhm.
demographics. It
Welcome to Value Seller Talks, where we bring ideas, innovation, industry insights, and experiences of great leaders who are challenging conventional thinking. I'm your host, Deepak Bajaj, and today is a very special day for Value Seller family as we are launching the first book on this platform from our special guest, Dr. Tula Youssef, who has spent 2.5 decades in building African telecom infrastructure and with a deep insights into how the real transformation happened on the ground. He is the founding partner at Infratel Africa, based out of Nigeria. He is an ambassador of Africa Union, which we call AU, and now as an author of a powerful new book, which is Africa is Not Offline: Leadership, System, and Inclusion Architecture. This book, I mentioned, this book challenges one of the biggest global misconceptions that Africa's problem is connectivity. Instead, it presents a bold perspective that Africa is not offline, but its systems are misaligned. It's a very powerful statement. Through a blend of his personal journey, leadership insights, and system thinking, the book explores the hidden architecture behind exclusions, the role of infrastructure, governance, and capital, and a powerful framework for building inclusion at a scale. One of the most compelling ideas from the book is exclusion is not accidental, it is architectural. Again, I repeat, exclusion is not accidental, it is architectural. So, this conversation is not just about Africa, it's about rethinking how we design systems that enable people to truly participate and grow. So, let's dive in. Welcome, Dr. Tola Yusuf.
Thank you very much, Bajaj, and thank you very much for what you've been doing. Thank you for pushing the narrative, and thank you for the opportunity to be on this podcast at this moment, and probably pushing a total narrative. In my thinking, I strongly believe that the podcast of today is beyond what I would call a book review or a corporate interview or a telecom conversation as we have known. But just 1 minute. I have somebody that is disturbing me. I will need to just cut this side.
Yes, Dr. Tola. You
Okay.
speak.
Thank you, Bajaj, and thank you for this opportunity to be on Value Talk, on the Value Seller Talk. I'm quite elated, and as I said, I don't see this as a book launch per se, or a corporate interview or a telecom conversation. I I think that this is a dangerous rethinking of how the world misunderstood Africa. And just to be able to bring some sort of concept into how the idea or the philosophy behind Africa is not offline begin to grow in me, and how we come to the reason why the book. I have long been following a whole lot of philosophical ideas in terms of different narrative on Africa, and the misconception that surround generally Africa. And as well, I am a fan of the late Professor Pius Adesanya, whom I have read one of his books that says, "You are not a country, Africa," which actually is a powerful narrative correction behind the post-colonial identity, critics of simplified and African stereotype. And very recently, not too long, the book by Dambi Samoyo, Dead Aid, that spoke very largely on aid dependency critics, economic sovereignty, and developmental reform. So my intent, amongst other books, is to see how this conversation can be taken forward in terms of those narrative correction in the system and participation architecture. And for aid, in terms of the dependency, how some of this aid had been administered, and on most cases, they are already dead on arrival. Institutional alignment, infrastructure participation, and others. So very largely, this is where the concept of Africa is not offline emanated from. I once has been in an airport whereby I was asked a ridiculous question by somebody who probably think Africa probably is a village, or Africa as a whole is a full country. Do you people even have internet in Africa? You can imagine a country of about 54, a continent of about 54 countries. Then it's a question at this 21st century, you are asking if they have internet of connectivity. So I think very likely the aim is to educate and try to correct the impression generally about Africa, and at the same time try to grind forward the potential and the place of Africa in the world. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for setting the context. I understand that how painful it is when someone asks such type of questions, right? And the way the Africa has been positioned in a right manner, but it has been misunderstood, or it has been not been considered, from that equivalent perspective. That's created a lot of anger as well as dissatisfaction. But one thing I want to ask Dr. Tola as we start, that if Africa is not offline, right, then why the world is getting a completely wrong sentiment, or why they are positioning it in a different zone?
Thank you, Bajaj. Thank you very well. Obviously, in the literal world, even you as a telecom person knows that Africa is not offline, actually. Yeah. However, if you have to bring the message a bit home, say the world has misunderstood Africa by interpreting feasible infrastructure gap as an evidence of absence, rather than evidence of misalignment. Africa has never lacked intelligence, and I think those ones are not even in doubt, resilience, entrepreneurship, and participation. What has often been missing is alignment between systems that should naturally work together. And this range between infrastructure, governance, capital, energy, logistics, and a whole lot. Ability to get this infrastructure to work together is what I think has been majorly the bane of Africa up to this moment. So when people say Africa is offline, they often imagine a continent disconnected from modernization entirely. But what I expected or have experienced as somebody whom have grown in a rural community in Africa is entirely different. My experience across community and institution and market, totally different. I have seen extraordinary ingenuity in places with almost no institutional support. I have seen entrepreneurs building businesses without stable electricity. I think in Africa, this is a norm as well. Students learning under impossible conditions and community adapting faster than what you can see even in most developed world. So that is not a continent that cannot be defined by a continent that is totally offline. That is a continent compensating for architectural inefficiency, planning misalignment, and a whole lot of stuff. So for me, the real issue is that too many systems were designed around extraction rather than participation. In many cases, infrastructure was not built to integrate the people to opportunity, but simply to enable limited activity around limited economic activity within a certain location. So this distinction matter enormously. You can imagine whereby a certain aid is given for a purpose, and those purposes are actually done, and probably if they are done at all, these things are done in silos, and there is no connected system that ensure participation or some sort of development around a system. So these are some of the problems that I actually have seen firsthand. When I was about finishing my SSCs in the early 90s, I remember very vividly that what we used to do those days, because we do not have anything that has to do with electricity in my community as at that time. What we have is the common lantern. But with this lantern, we go all around. We probably have to read all overnight, and you'll be surprised at the kind of result we come out with. So I cannot say a continent that is offline, we have most of this ingenuity. What is lacked majorly happens to be coordination, infrastructure, amongst other things. And this is why the book argues that the core problem is not activation, it is architecture. The future of Africa will not be determined merely by how much capital enter into the continent, but by whether the system are intentionally, underline the word intentionally designed to include people meaningfully and sustainably. And perhaps most importantly, the misunderstanding is costly not only for Africa, but for the world. Because when a continent of over 1 billion is structurally excluded, humanity lost innovation, markets, talent, and stability at global scale. Thank you.
No, I totally agree with you what you rightly mentioned, because that sentiments and that the point which you mentioned, that come from the real ground experience, right? So the Africa, we all know, the world knows that is a full of potential, the golden opportunities, as well as very important point, they have it's a young continent. The youth are the one who is driving it, and they all are tech savvy. So we can see a lot of startups and lot of incubators who are emerging from Africa. But yes, thanks for bringing that particular point, that why the world is seeing it, and you clearly mentioned all the points in a very, very simple manner. And I'm sure our 50,000 audience, global audience, will understand, and that will change the way they are looking at the African continent.
Thank you.
Dr. Tola, I want to again restrain on the one statement which you was pushing every time, that exclusion is not accidental, it's architecture. That's a very powerful statement. So are global system unintentionally broken, or they are deliberately designed in that way?
Okay, Bajaj, and I'm going to start with something. This is a very sensitive discussion at this moment, and I don't want to be seen as being trying to push a negative narration in terms of the way the world, not just in Africa, and as if this exclusion was planned. But Bajaj, if we have a narration and we're talking, and every day I see you and I say, Bajaj will always be in a black suit. And I start this narration continuously over time, you will believe that there is this tendency for people to believe, even if you are going to wear that black suit one day, that, oh, what Dr. Tola is saying is true. Bajaj is always on a black suit. What I'm trying to say here is the fact that when you put a narration always or excessively about a subject, you don't know when the conception about those stuff begin to look real, even when they are not real or they are fictitious. So I believe the answer is more complex than conspiracy, but more intentional than coincidence. So systems do not emerge randomly. Incentives shape them, power shape them, history shape them over time. Institutions naturally optimize around those already participating successfully within the system. So what we call exclusion today is often the accumulated result of decades of design decisions that probably have evolved over time. Some consciously, some inherited, some economics, some political. Roads are built where return are easiest. Capital flow where risk are lowest. If you agree with me, connectivity expand where purchasing power already exists. So governance prioritize visibility over structural reforms. So none of these decisions may appear malicious individually, but collectively they create exclusion at scale. And that is what exactly I mean that exclusion is not accidental. That is why I say exclusion is architectural, and which is more like, if it is not accidental, what exactly is that exclusion? What does it mean? I believe it's architectural. If millions remain disconnected from infrastructure, finance, education, or digital participation for decades, we cannot continue describing it as accidental. It's no longer accidental because you are aware, you can track history, you know what happened. At some point, repeated neglect become structural design. However, the purpose of this book is not to create anger, and it is not really for us to begin to have a narration or argument around why the exclusion, is it real, is it intentional, are we going to blame our leaders, and a whole lot of stuff. That is not the intention. The intention is to create awareness and responsibility, because when we understand that exclusion is engineered through systems, then inclusion must always be engineered intentionally. And that is the real message of this discussion. Thereby encouraging reality is this: architecture can be redesigned, system can evolve, incentive can be aligned differently, and leadership can choose long-term participation over short-term extractions. The future of society capable of designing systems that scale dignity, not merely efficiency. So Bajaj, let me take, for example, most of the Africa, let's say the part of Africa that operates on the democratically elected government, they have their own system every 4 years. And per 4 years, that means decisions are shaped within a certain roadmap or mantra of a certain government that is at place as at that period. So what you find out is that there is no an architectural decision or a roadmap for Africa to ensure that dignity is actually designed. You see a short time, 4 years per government, designing their own system in silo And when the next government come in the next 4 years, or the next system of government come, they kill what is existing. Thereby, continuity is truncated. And then a whole system is not built over time. And this is where, on most cases, where the exclusion begin. And the concept behind this book, or the philosophical idea behind this book, is to awaken Africans and the world at large that African development can only happen when it is engineered through inclusion, deliberately and intentionally. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm sure as you rightly mentioned, that this book is not about putting the blames or pinpointing. It's about the area which can be reconstructed, re-engineering, redesigned, or some area which has not been taken care can be focused. So I'm
Excellent.
sure it's not only the problem. It's about the solution and the framework to build Africa for the long-term perspective and bringing that harmony which we are talking globally. So
Excellent.
thank you, Dr. Tola, for bringing that part, because this is something which is everyone requires, and we are focusing on how to build Africa from those pointers, or from those position which has been constructed so far. But it's time to evolve. It's time to bring the revolution around it. So thank you so much for bringing that part. Now,
Thank you very much.
another question which comes quite predominantly, that it's about the belief, right? That Africa today is the world's most misunderstood opportunity. I'm using the word opportunity, right? So, what is your thoughts on it? And if you think that it's there, so why the people are failing to see that experience and opportunities firsthand?
Yes, absolutely, Bajaj. I strongly believe that Africa is not merely an emerging opportunity. It is one of the most structurally underestimated opportunity in the modern history. If the world together focus on Africa, the world history in the next decades, we have a different dimension towards towards growth in terms of what it looks like. What many people fail to see is that Africa's greatest asset is not simply natural resources or demographics. It is adaptive capacity of an average African man. The continent has developed resilience under conditions that will collapse many systems as well. That resilience, if combined with aligned infrastructure and institution, it becomes extremely transformational. An average Africa entrepreneur is operating on a very, very sensitive and what I will call underperforming conditions. And you still see that Africa, due to their resilience and ability, almost they are able to buck the trend. For me, power outage is normal. For me, lack of infrastructure, road, connectivity, it's not something that is rare. It is normal. But one thing, logistic issue is normal. A whole lot of issues that survive, that normal business in a developed world will not be able to survive under, they are normal for me. So when I'm building a system, or when an average African child or entrepreneur is building a system or is trying to survive, you find out that you see the resilience, the doggedness, the ability to survive under extraneous condition, to make success out of it, to be able to grow success out of it. And I think that alone is an infrastructure, is an invisible infrastructure that many other parts of the world does not process. And it comes like an instinct, just build like an instinct. I have worked across telecommunication, digital infrastructure, underserved, unserved community, And what I can tell you, I consistently observed was not lack of a demand, but lack of a system readiness. In many rural communities, people are already economically active, socially connected, and digitally curious. They are ready. The limitation is not aspiration. The limitation is access architecture. Do they have the network? Do they have a full participation? Do they have a system in place that ensure that when these people participate, they can have growth, they can succeed? The kid, the student, can they learn and being able to connect to the world and learn in a different manner in the 21st century? These are some of the gaps that I think exist. People often speak about Africa as a future market, but Africa is already a functional market to me. What is incomplete is the infrastructure layer required to lock this scale. The world is also underestimating the strategic significance of inclusion itself. Inclusion, we all talk about. We talk about financial inclusion. We talk about inclusion on every other thing. But the next great global growth wave will not only come from advanced economies optimizing the existing system. It's going to come from integrating billions of previously underserved, unserved people in productive participation. That is what I think is going to help in terms of strategic significance of inclusion itself. And that is why Africa as a continent matter in the future of humanity, not merely to Africa itself, but in terms of global relevance. Thank you.
It's a very, very thoughtful point which you have mentioned, and it's not about the missing parts. It's all about the structuring of those unsolved puzzle. And definitely, that's where the leaders like you, and now I must say the author like you, the leaders turned into author, that bring your wisdom and those gaps which can be filled. So every statement which you are giving to us is giving intensify that the framework which has been put in that book and that should be read through or read by the policy holders to look into what exactly is going on, and where there's a need of the transformation or the correction. I move to the next point, which is again a very common question which comes from every part of the world is that is the real problem in Africa is a lack of talent or a lack of aligned systems that allows the talent to participate and scale?
Um, that question, I think almost everybody can answer that question. Not just African and African themselves, even the developed world can learn hand to that. That one of the key strategy today is the moment there is a shortage of power anywhere, mostly in the world, in most of these developed worlds, what we do is to just create a strategy to find a way to attract African for labor. So for me, Africa has never suffered from a shortage of talent. That's not a question. In Nigeria alone, generally Africa, in Nigeria alone, between 2020 to 2022, thousands of immigrants or thousands of talents have probably has eloped to the developed world. That on its own is not a problem because then we chalk out many talents, we develop them. However, it has its own disadvantage. In fact, I would say one of the greatest tragedy of the continent is how much brilliance has historically been forced to operate beneath the system ceiling. We have brilliant people, very, very intelligent people whom probably cannot operate within the existing structure. The system has choked them. I have met extraordinary engineers, entrepreneurs, operators, teachers, innovators, and young people whose capacity rivals global standards. But talent without system, because survival instead of scale. You will see a lot of talents that what they are looking for at that moment is just survival, instead of those talents to start scaling. The challenge is that institutions often fail to convert human potential into productive momentum. Infrastructure gap increase operating costs, financial system remain inaccessible, policy environment shifts unpredictably, logistics remain fragmented, educational systems are often disconnected from economic realities, and this friction compound over time. What many successful ecosystems understand is that talent alone does not create prosperity. Systems do. Silicon Valley is not powerful because Americans are inherently more intelligent than everyone else. I don't believe. It is powerful because infrastructure, finance, policy, networking, and incentive evolve all together. It brings all this together and then compounds to give success. The same principle applies to Africa. Once system allows around participation, the scale of acceleration will surprise the world. So the goal is, how do we align our system around participation so Africa can scale? And that is why inclusive architecture framework, which was introduced in that book, focuses not only on people, but on the invisible structure surrounding the people. Thank you.
And yes, very rightly said, that system will bring the prosperity. The talent doesn't alone can go up to that stage. And that's the power of the system and importance of the system to scale that talent and convert into the prosperity and the success for the continent. Very, very important message. And that's the whole idea behind this book, that to find out the gaps in the system, which has already been there or has not been changed since many years or decades. Now, what is that, how that in the 21st century, how it is going to evolve. Every statement which you are giving, Dr. Tola, is making me very excited and curious to go through this book again, word by word, line by line, so that I will be able to visualize the Africa from your lens.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we spoke more about, what is going as we, at present or in the past, right? Now, if tomorrow Africa achieves that full alignment across infrastructure, governance, and capital. Now, it's very important. Again, I'm asking, if tomorrow Africa gets all this infrastructure, governance, and capital, then what would the world gain, or what would the world will lose?
Bajaj, I think here that the world lose, and Africa, when it comes to full alignment of infrastructure, governance, and capital, cannot be in the same sentence. It is gain, as far as I'm concerned. The world will gain one of the greatest expansion of human participation ever witnessed, because millions of people in Africa are not participating in the world's expansion at the moment. They are obviously not. And these are inhibited by a whole lot of those slides we mentioned, infrastructure and a whole lot of stuff. But the world will gain new markets, new innovation ecosystem, new supply chain, new cultural influence, new intellectual contribution, just like we're doing now at the moment, and perhaps most importantly, new stability. Inclusion reduces fragility, obviously. Participation reduces conflict. Opportunity strengthens institutions. So Africa's alignment will also accelerate global economic diversification. It will reshape manufacturing, digital services, energy transition strategy, agricultural systems, and even geopolitical influence. When you begin to get people's participation or human participation, you will see that life itself or the world itself was created for everybody to participate, because everybody will bring different ideas, different talent, different knowledge, different views, thinkings, into play, the world will also lose something this time around. And ask me, the only thing the world will lose is the comfort of asymmetric. That's what the world will lose. The world will lose looking at just one way, and then probably is only the developed world. There will be diverse of ideas. There will be gain from the diversity that will happen in human participation. Many global systems currently benefit from unequal participation. And you will agree with me that is what we are seeing at this moment. A whole lot of people in most of the developed world, in terms of view and thinking and approach, they have unequal participation. And by that, you misconcept the fact that they are much more intelligent or better than an average person who probably the world has kept in his own mind and probably have not been participating or cannot participate due to fault of not his own. I do not believe that your place of birth, whom probably you cannot control, you are not involved, you don't know why and how you are giving birth to in a certain location, should limit your opportunity and human participation in the world. Some economy depend on raw extraction rather than value creation. Some institutions benefit from informational imbalance. Some markets are structured around dependency rather than empowerment. And a more structurally aligned Africa changes this equation permanently. If Africa is well aligned, some of what happened to us at this moment as an African man will not happen. Sometimes you see raw gold that are being extracted and then taken offshore to put one or two value or no value, or one or two value to it, and then sell to us an exorbitant rate. Look at the transformation just today happening by just virtue of Dangote building a refinery in Nigeria and still making efforts to build in other African countries at this moment. That's an entire structural change today. That is called human participation. So in the normal world, currently, the Iran inferno or crisis will have distorted what is happening across Africa, majorly Nigeria. But because the fact that we are refining our fuel at this moment, the impact wasn't as strong as it ought to be. And that is how we can begin to change the narrative in terms of infrastructure conversation. And that is why this conversation is bigger than Africa. It is ultimately a conversation about what kind of world order will we want to build in the 21st century? This is the general question I pose to everybody. If the world order we want to build in the 21st century is to ensure everybody participate and grow together, the world soon will be a better place to be. Thank you.
Yes, and we all hopeful for that the world should become the better place. And nowadays, what is happening across the world, Middle East, and the tension between the US and the things are going on. It's not a good situation to be in. And yes, so yeah, it's a separate topic for the discussion. But yes, I totally agree and resonate with you that if the human participation, when you say human participation, the diversity as well as the intelligence from the different part of the continent will create the more and more colorful. It will add more colors to their reform policies, and I'm pretty much sure that will bring the equality across the continent, as well as the developed as well as developing countries and nations. So totally agree with you, and I love the part the purpose here is to make the world a better place, and this book will be a gateway to find out that what is missing and what is has to be transformed. Thank you, Dr. Tola. This is very, very powerful and very, very on the and it is on the spot because all your pointers are actually fitting into the whole piece, and it is giving a right framework, right direction, and the right action to be taken at the right time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bajaj.
You always mention about leadership without permission.
Yes.
Leadership should have a permission, but leadership without permission is something which is something different than the regular conversation. So the first question comes, why are so many leaders still waiting, and what is the cost of that delay of not taking the action and the impact which is having on the African growth?
Bajaj, thank you very, very much for that question. If you are from a part of the world, Africa, and most especially Nigeria, you will know how aggressive we are. And that is because when you have to struggle in a population of more than 200 million, above 200 million people, sometimes you may not need permission to be able to do what is right. This is because many people have conditioned to believe that legitimacy must come before action. But history rarely works that way to me. Transformational leadership often begins long before institutional validation. And you can fact check me. Too many capable people today are waiting for perfect certainty, ID conditions, political approval, or external recognition before solving obvious problems that are right in your face. We've listed many currently ravaging Africa, and there are loopholes that can be done. Meanwhile, the system continues to deteriorate. So the cost of delay in Africa is enormous because demographic growth is accelerating faster than institutional adaptation. Every year of indecision compounds unemployment, exclusion, migration, which is hitting us so hard. You see migration pressure everywhere, insecurity, and loss of productivity. Today, most of our youths are not even patient enough. What they want to do, and you can't blame anybody. This is as a result of the current problem ravaging Africa. So it is either you choose to develop your innate ability to adapt, or you eloped under migration pressure or other stuff that are currently ravaging Africa. So leadership without permission means understanding that responsibilities sometimes arrive before authority. And then you have to hold that responsibility very hard. It means acting because the problem exists, not because someone officially appointed you to solve the problem. You can see the problem, and then you offer yourself to solve the problem sustainably, and then make something sustainable in terms of impact, and at the same time, money out of it. So problem, you make money. So that philosophy shaped much of my own journey. I eventually realized that if the system I wanted did not exist, then waiting indefinitely for others to build them was itself a decision. And I can choose to take that decision and wait forever, or choose to do something about it. Bajaj, let me give you a little bit of my story, and then maybe something we will be able to pick from it. I grew my primary and secondary, or what you call high school days, from a rural community, whereby even going to school seems more like a privilege, because a lot will not even go that way, and most of us are from humble background. And our perception, for some of us that wants to go to school, or people like me, I see education as an escape. Why? I want to expose my mind. I want to do something differently. I don't want a situation whereby I am constrained to a thinking that has to do with farming, work hard in the farm, do a whole lot of stuff within a certain limitation, and then die when it is time. So for me, education comes more like an escape. I see education as the only way out for me to be able to do something meaningful in life. And when you come from such a background whereby you do everything yourself, you probably, long before I left for higher institution, I don't think mobile phone look as if what is even possible to me. Although we communicate. You have what they call town criers, that then you aggregate people or they pass information in community, and then you communicate through many other means. To many Gen Z, what I'm saying, they may not be able to comprehend actually. But the goal is saying that we perform under extreme conditions. And by the time you begin to emerge, what kind of approval, what kind of permission do you need to begin to fix the problem? So it comes naturally. You look at those problems heads on and want to fix it. For me, what's one of the major reasons whereby participation, I will call it participation and inclusion, is core to me, is the fact that I came from a rural area where I see exclusion raw of great talent that will have been able to participate in a global world and be better than whom they are. So the future will belongs to builder willing to act before consensus become comfortable. And that is that's my idea about leadership without permission.
Very well articulated, and especially the future belongs who will build it, right? And the only those who can build, those who has work and have a first-hand experience on it, and that's the they understand where the gaps are and what has to be rectified or modified or removed, because the policies has been which has been done so far from last so many years will not work in today's world, and especially when the AI is getting the momentum, and the people and the Gen Z is becoming more and more smarter.
Excellent. You got it.
Right. So every time the curiosity, you are increasing the curiosity to go and go word by word and line by line of your book, and I'm pretty much sure we are not able to complete each and everything, but yes, the intention and the thoughts behind publishing a book is very clear. So people are getting that idea that what is the motive behind and why this book is not like any other book in the market who just talk about Africa. It's not about the talking Africa. It's not about talking the system only. It's about building the framework, right? And
yes,
thanks for penning down each and every point. Uh,
Thank you, Bajaj. Thank you.
I would now more focus into especially the next generation, right? So if the next generation in Africa truly understand your inclusion architecture framework, what kind of
Yes,
Africa would be, and what kind of world do you believe it will get witnessed in our next decade?
Come again with that question.
I'm saying if the next generation in Africa truly understand your inclusion architecture framework, so what kind of Africa and what kind of world do you believe we will witness in the next 10 years?
Thank you, Bajaj. Okay. As part of my contribution or my thinking based on many years being a participant, and I've lived this experience in area that are obviously excluded, and my experience as well as an infrastructure and a system architecture, I think we will witness an Africa transitioning from reactive development to intentional system design. And the next generation will stop treating infrastructure as an isolated project and begin understanding it as an interconnected ecosystem. Energy will connect with education, connectivity will connect to healthcare, finance will connect to productivity, governance will connect to participation. Most importantly, young leaders will stop seeing exclusion as normal. I strongly feel that today, most of these young leaders, even some of us as well, are beginning to take the current situation as norms. And we build as there's nothing that is going to happen. Just build within your ecosystem. You cannot bug those change. I think that shift alone, if young leader will stop seeing exclusion as normal, I strongly believe that shift alone will be revolutionary. Within 10 years, as you ask, Africa could become one of the following. One, a global digital workforce hub. A global digital workforce hub, whereby you can go to online and pick any required workforce. The population is there. If the know-how or there is a digital hub workforce created for intelligent Africa, it will become a workforce hub that can solve the world problem at large. It will become a renewable energy growth engine. Power is a big gap in Africa. Africa will become a renewable energy growth engine, a manufacturing and logistic corridor, a leading youth innovation ecosystem, and most importantly, a model for adaptive infrastructure designs. So I believe in 10 years, this and more will be what will define Africa. But beyond the economics, the world itself will witness something deeper. A generation no longer psychologically conditioned by inherited limitation. And that is the real statement and word that I see. We are going to begin to see that the world itself is not conditioned by limitation. You can think what we call think within the box. You say think outside the box this time around. And you can begin to see yourself that you can become anything, anyway. And once people stop internalizing limitation, then transformation accelerates very quickly. And it becomes extremely transformational. Thank you.
No, perfectly, because the way I understand Africa as a young and youth-oriented continent, and when these people have been given that tool, that platform, and you rightly mentioned that in the next 10 years, the Africa positioning will be a digital workforce hub. So it means that all the talent from different variation from on different streams can be easily available, and that can bring a prosperity to the continent as a whole. The pointer which you rightly mentioned is something which is very, very resonating, because the logistics, the raw materials, the renewable energies, as well as the 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 delivery centers, I must say, which is serving the world, is not a dream. It's become a reality very soon. So very, very articulated. And yes, and I must say that will be a beginning. It's not the end. It's a beginning for the new Africa. So Dr. Tola, I need a one word from you for Africa in 2050, 2050. What the Africa, how you pronounce it?
For Africa in 2050. And then what am I going to say here, Bajaj? Since it's one word, I seem to have a lot of words, but since it's one word, I will need to look for a terminology to call such a word.
It's a difficult
And
question.
if there is a word for 2050, I'm still going to give out one word. I'll say Africa is inevitable.
Wow.
Africa is inevitable. And the one word for me is the inevitable. That's the big word. And why am I saying Africa will become inevitable in 2050? This is because despite all its contradictions, pressures, and structural complexity, Africa represents one of the few places in the world where demography, energy, digital transformation, entrepreneurial resilience, and future economic necessity are converging seamlessly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, Africa is a continent today that represents one of the few places on planet Earth where demography, energy, digital transformation, entrepreneurial resilience, and future economic necessity are converging simultaneously. And if all this happen by 2050, Africa will surely become inevitable. However, the question is no longer whether Africa matters. I don't think that is the narrative we are trying to push forward here. That's not the argument at the moment. The question is whether the system will evolve quickly enough to support what is already coming. Africa will emerge. Africa already matter. Africa is inevitable. But how much is the world at large and the entire system are evolving quickly to ensure that this emerge and come as fast as possible? And that is the thinking that, and what I think, what we should be resonating and ruminating about when it concerns 2050. Thank you.
Yeah, and now I understand and connect the dots that why you are saying the leadership without permission, because the opportunities are
Exactly.
there. The opportunities are there.
Opportunities are enormous. They're enormous in
Yes.
this part of the world.
Yes.
Enormous.
And yes, definitely. So it's the time to leverage the talent. It's time to leverage the energy, the resources, and just to make the policies so that it should get accommodated for the 21st century development.
Thank you.
And to make it the
That's
inevitable.
it. That's it. There can't be any better moment for me to be an African. It's a proud moment. Most people, by virtue of being an African, sometimes think differently. They are disadvantaged. Why can't I be in the most of this development world without mentioning anything? Because to me, most of them are being myopic. They are not looking at the positive side of a certain problem at a certain period of time. I think by 2050, the world you mentioned, the world will be Africa, if I'm permitted to use that statement.
Very well said, very well said. And now we are able to connect all the dots, and this is the vision which every African should have, that what they are going to transform in the next 10, 20
Exactly.
years. Right.
Yes.
The audience will be much interested now than when this book is going to launch and how they can access it.
Okay. Initially, my goal, we're talking about the book, but majorly what resonates majorly to me is the idea behind the book. And keeping this book beyond a certain period of time is not what I intend to do. I think the hype is good, but ability to let people begin to see what the content look like and see what the arguments, let me put it well, the argument and the thoughts behind the book look like is way. So I am thinking by June, which is coming month, we should be able to come up with the digital edition of the book, and begin to you can download and you can probably get it on Amazon and begin to look at some of the idea behind the book. The goal is not simply to launch a book for me, but is to ignite a broader conversation around system, partnership, leadership, and the future architecture of inclusion. This is much more bigger to me. It is not just the workbook, but it's just to awaken the thinking in the people that the global conversation and the broader conversation of Africa is being integrated in terms of human participation and then system, enablement, leadership, and the future of inclusion. So that is actually the goal of this write-up. Because ultimately, this work is not just about Africa. To me, it is about the future of belonging in the modern world. So by June, the print edition, the digital edition will be out, and then we will announce accordingly on www.africaisnotoffline, which is our official website, when the print edition will be made available and the strategy for distribution. Thank you very much, Bajaj.
And we all are very, very excited about it. And we wish you the best of luck for this book launch. And as this is your first book, it's your own baby, with all your wisdom, with all your love, and with all your experiences. I'm 100% sure you will get a lot of positive feedbacks and the love from the audience and from the readers across the globe. Because Africa is not only for Africans. Now it become the topic of interest across the globe. right? And we have seen a lot of people,
Yes.
investors are focusing on Africa because they understand the potential. And so it's a right time. And when you are bringing such type of frameworks and your experience, I'm 100% sure everyone will get the direction. And you never know that this book become a gateway for investor to invest in Africa. And
Excellent. One word from me, or let's say one major highlight from me, Bajaj, just to complement this discussion, or this our discussion at this moment, is the next billion participants in the global economy will not emerge from saturated system. They will emerge from the overlooked system. If you look at it, the developed world are driving efficiency, getting more saturated, if you allow me to use that word. Africa is not yet effective. Hence, efficiency cannot be driven yet, because effectiveness before efficiency. The next billion participants in the global economy will not emerge from the Western world, or from the Western world and their systems. It's going to emerge from the overlooked system. And emerging, I don't like using the word emerging, because the word emerging is sometimes emerging, disconnected, and a whole lot of developing are what we use to qualify Africa, and begin to sometimes demeaning the understanding about the continent. But what I'm trying to bring home in terms of the message here, Africa does not need sympathy. It needs aligned architecture of inclusion. And if this happened, Africa will not be depending on the world. The world might be depending on Africa. Thank you very much.
Oh, lovely, lovely. It's a very powerful statement. We don't need sympathy. We need the opportunity and 100% and the faith that Africa has the power to execute that with flying colors. And that's the confidence every African is. It has already have. I'm working. I work with Africans. I stayed there for a long time. I've seen the energy. I see it's not a developing country. It's an emerging one.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
So, thank you, Dr. Tola, for this truly insightful and thoughtful conversation. Every time when I visit Africa, or the special country like South Africa or Kenya, I find that I always know it, right? But every visit give me some new learning, and it's a very important to see the world, the African world from your lenses. And we wish you a very best of luck for the success of this book. And it's not only for the reading; it's for the implementing. So your thoughts, your frameworks will definitely help in the building the right Africa for the next generation. Before we close, any final message would you like to share with our global audience?
Okay, thank you very much. I think there is a way you bring out the fire in me this afternoon, in terms of more like my thought process, and when this were more like coming in terms of the thinking generally about the philosophy. I will use this opportunity to implore and to pray most of the development agency, organization, NGOs, African Development, AFDB, GSMA, and all other institutions that are looking at solving a global problem, and by such solving an African problem, including the academia, inquisitive leaders, and a whole lot of people to please review and probably have an idea of take a snapshot of this book and review the argument therein, and probably set this amongst other as a pace or a level on which they can develop a new understanding or a new meaning in terms of progression on how we can better human participation and most especially African participation in the modern world and in the modern world order. The intent of this book is not to demean everybody. It's not just a technology book. It's not mainly to come from a position of superiority, but rather is to highlight those things that seems to be hidden, being someone whom probably have not just lived in Africa, but have participated and see some of those structural deficiency. And we want, by virtue of this book, beyond anything, the conversation to be taken further and looking for other researchers and other people who probably must have lived that experience to find a way to document some of this journey so new and emerging and young Africans can begin to find hope in the continent at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you, lovely. And that's the collaboration with the researchers and to get this thing documented. I'm pretty much sure that will create a lot of new opportunities for you for expanding and thinking and refining this frameworks more and more because every person will contribute with their own ideas. And I'm pretty much sure that is something which will refine and make a betterment of the individual, of the community, as well as for the African growth. So thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much, brother.
Tula. It was a pleasure talking with you, and we wish you all the best for the first of all the book launch because again it's an important milestone. I know how much time it will take, how much effort, energy it will take for the book launch, and definitely we wish that this statements and this phrases which you mentioned should go to the right people and they should start taking the golden nuggets out of it. And yes, Africa is inevitable, is the powerful thing, and we totally resonate with you.
Thank you very much, Bajaj. I appreciate you as usual, and thank you for helping us taking this narrative forward. Thank you for your impact as well by making sure that some of this information are right in the fore. There is a common saying that you don't light the candle and put it under the table. We are probably having information that I think that can transform the entire world, and as much as we can, we should always bring them to the fore, communicate it, no matter how hard they are, so that we can probably and we are able to live in a world beneficial to all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to our global audience, this is Deepak Bajaj, and until next time, we take it signing off. Thank you so much.
Thank you.